I want to give you just a brief few words, and that's this, is that the Salvation Army is God's idea. It would be wonderful if through the leadership of the board, through the community support, if we could just come up with this crackerjack idea that would really lead the community forward. But I truly believe that the reason we're here today is that God has inspired the work of the Salvation Army to exist. And God inspired William Booth to raise the Salvation Army up. It's his. He can do what he wants with it. And that came because William Booth had a very clear idea about the nature of humanity. That humans are not, and particularly as we think about it, the poor, if we look at it that way, are not objects of our charity. The poor are not objects for us to do service to. Instead, we think we can move beyond some sort of objectifying view of other people to a subjective view, that we think that people are created in the image of God with a capacity within their very being to pull themselves to a place with support of other people around the community to be who God's created them to be. A philosopher of economics named Michael Matheson Miller says that all people have the opportunity to be the protagonist of their own story of development. That they can be the heroes of their stories, as we heard today, right? That as we come alongside people and support them and put them in positions where they can thrive, we have the opportunity to bring about real change in the world. And this connects, of course, with the fact that we have a vision for where people can go. So that when Geraldine walked into that office, we had a vision because we knew that God had put capacity in this community. God put capacity in the Salvation Army to meet these needs. And so we have the opportunity to come alongside of Geraldine and hundreds and thousands of others to help them become the protagonists in their own story. And that comes because we have a vision for the world. I alluded to Jesus' return about my beloved Cubs, right? But this isn't just a kind of a fleeting idea that kind of connects me to some internal religious feeling. Like, I see it as an empirical fact that Jesus will return and put the world right. And because Jesus is coming back, our world has a place where it's going. Like, our world has an opportunity to participate in his plan, and that then leads us to have a vision for people's lives. And vision breathes on hope. And hope isn't just a feeling. It's not something that just floats around. Hope is something that's real, that's based on the fact that Jesus not only is coming back, but the fact that Jesus was raised from the dead. So because of these facts, the Salvation Army exists, and this idea of the Salvation Army is present. Major Proctor mentioned that we served in the Salvation Army in western Kentucky. And we were in a small town, if you know it, I'd be very surprised, called Madisonville, Kentucky, which is probably the exact opposite of Naples, Florida. An area that was a coal mining town, and that was where my wife and I first served after we left Asbury Seminary before we went to serve at the Salvation Army's training college in Atlanta. And while we were there, we had a variety of very interesting cultural experiences that I did not know would come my way. Our board maybe wasn't as sophisticated as the lovely folks that I've met here today, but they're a lovely group of guys, and we are trying to get some ladies on there, so I'm great to see that you have such strong, confident, capable women on your board here. We had to challenge, when I got there, I realized that we had a warehouse that was twice the size of this room, that we were paying way too much for in rent, and it was completely filled up with junk. People didn't, it was kind of like backup for our thrift store, but all the things weren't really able for us, we weren't able to sell anything in there. It was a real challenge. So our board got together and they said, hey, we could get the mayor to give us a truck that we could fill up with garbage, and they'd take care of that. And I said, I know, it's just we don't have enough staff to really do this, and the guys from the board weren't able to come and help us. They said, but so-and-so's running for jailer. So let's just see if he can provide you some guys from the jail to come and help you clear out the warehouse. Thought, great, hey, I'll take anybody. So we went in, and I drove the Salvation Army van, a 15-passenger van, over to the jail. I came in, and as I got in there, this guy came out, and I'm telling you, he was like Barney Fife, okay? He had a little clipboard, and he was ready to give. I said, I'm Captain. I wasn't I was just Andy Miller. At the time, I wasn't a captain. He said, I'm Andy Miller. I'm here to pick up a few guys to come help us. And so out walk these guys. He takes a key, unlocks them. They're in their orange jumpsuits, and they file into the 15-passenger van. I thought, great. So I kept standing there. The guys got in the car, And I said, okay, so where's the police officer that's coming with them? He said, oh, there's no police officer coming with them. I know, but see, I'm 25, I weigh 140 pounds. You mean I'm going to be with them? He said, yeah, no problem, you got it. He said, if there's any trouble, just call us. What type of trouble are you talking about? So I was, okay, I'm driving very cautiously in very open places, but then I drive to this terrible warehouse on the bad side of town. But there you go, I have these guys with me. Now here, as they're there all day with me, they are having a blast. I mean, they're working so hard. I'm praying with these guys, hearing their stories. It was great. I had a great time that day. Then I realized that they didn't have, they had a lunch that they brought with them from the jail, and it looked awful. Like nothing that I would ever want to eat. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to take these guys out to eat. So I was 25, and I didn't know anything. I still don't know what I'm doing. But here I go. I pull into Kentucky Fried Chicken. I'm in Kentucky anyways. So as I pull in there, I go out and I open up the door for my, all right, come on, guys, come in. And they had to tell me, I don't think it'd be so good for 15 guys in jumpsuits to go into Kentucky Fried. So then I went through the drive-thru, and as I'm at the drive-thru, after we pulled up to the window, the lady had a very interesting look on her face when she saw what was in the back of our car. So I took Kentucky Fried Chicken, and we went back to the Salvation Army building, and we had a lunch, and I'm telling you, there was not a Kentucky Fried crumb left. They ate everything. And here's what's so interesting. Like, as I was with these guys that day, I realized that they were not born, they were not made to be imprisoned. That they were made to be free. And we think in the Salvation Army that people were not made, not born to be in a place of poverty. We think people weren't born to live with sin weighing you down. We think that there's a bigger vision for the world that we get to participate in. And that vision breathes on hope. That there's a hope for our world. There's a hope for people who are in difficult situations. And this hope isn't optimism. It's not optimism in a political theory. It's not optimism in an idea, in a scheme. This hope is based in Jesus' reality in our world. So we say with very strong confidence that the mission of the Salvation Army is to preach the gospel of Jesus Christ and meet human needs in his name without discrimination. Now, you may not buy into all that, and that's fine. But that's why we do what we do. And we sense that God is leading us to a different, brighter place. My daughter isn't here. Her name is Georgia. I know it seems like a different name. We named her Georgia when we lived in Texas. And then we moved to Georgia. And I have no children named Florida. But there you go. So I'm just glad I didn't name her Montana. So here's, takes a little bit to get that one. She was a very interesting situation we were in last December, in the middle of our red kettle season, which I know all of you will be ringing bells for Major Proctor. When we were in the middle of that season, it was tiring, exhausting. We were going from event to event. I was out in our front yard with my daughter, Georgia, and there was a tree in our front yard that happened to lose all of its leaves in 1 week. I said, Georgia, look, that tree lost all of its leaves just this week. And she said, that's too bad. I said, Georgia, what do you mean? She said, I guess we should just cut it down. I guess we just cut the tree down, right? She didn't understand, right, how this works. And maybe when we look at a world that seems like it's lacking hope, maybe when we look at the challenges that some of the people who we'll see today at the Salvation Army all across Florida, all across the country, all across the world, maybe when we see these things, we think, let's just cut it down. When we see how violence has reached levels in frustration that we can't understand, when we see the tragedy of human life pushed to the side and not valued, when we see poisoned waters in Flint, Michigan, it reminds us of our vulnerability. We see global persecution of Christians across the world at an all-time high. We see the beauty of human sexuality and the complementary design that God has given, thwarted, twisted, and pushed away by the Supreme Court. when we see challenges coming all around, political challenge, nobody, I think, wants to be in the place we are in right now politically. When we see these things, we realize that there is a real layer of sin covering our world. And we might just say, cut it down. Cut it down. We don't want it. There's no fruit on that tree. There's no leaves on that tree. Let's cut it down. In that moment, I leaned down to Georgia, and I said to her, but Georgia, spring is coming. Right? Spring is, and that tree that doesn't have any leaves on it is going to have leaves again. And when we look at the challenges of our world, we look at where it is right now, we can say that spring is coming. Like, we're not just caught in a view of the world that says it's just going to go away. We think that God is going to redeem the world, and we get to be a part of it. We participate in it, and you participate in it when you buy a table at this event. When you participate in our kettle campaign, we participate in the reality that God will restore and redeem our world. And that gives us a hope that's connected to vision, that's connected to the reality of humanity, that tells us we're going someplace. I was reminded just yesterday, and my favorite author is a guy named E. Stanley Jones, who died 50 years ago. And he said that this sentence in Scripture is the most breathtaking sentence he's ever read. And I was, I have to see what this is. And it's an obscure one to me. 1 John 2:8. And it says this, "Yet I am writing you a new command. Its truth is seen in him," in Jesus. Its truth is seen in him and in you. Its truth is the truth of the eternal God that's in Christ is also available for us. What a beautiful picture. Then it says this, "Because the darkness is passing and the true light is already shining." The true light of Christ is shining through the work of the Salvation Army here. And the true light that is moving our world forward is present and available if we will join him in it. Will you join? Will you seek to do the most good in this way? Because we are connected to something bigger and better than who we ever are by ourselves. God bless you.